There was a time when money meant something when it shimmered, weighed heavy in your hand, and carried the scent of the earth it was pulled from. Gold wasn't just metal, it was trust, stability, and truth. But one day, gold died, and from its ashes rose something that could be printed, manipulated, and controlled paper. This isn't just a story about money. It's the story of how power changed form, from the mines and markets to the meeting rooms of bankers and politicians. And it all happened so quietly that almost no one realized the rules of reality had changed. Today, we uncover how gold was dethroned, how paper money became power, and why that silent transformation still dictates every price, every paycheck, and every promise in the modern world. For thousands of years, gold was the ultimate anchor of civilization. Empires rose and fell on it. Armies marched to control it. And trade, from the Silk Road to the British Empire, was built around its shimmer. Gold was universal. A Roman coin could be melted down and revalued in India. It didn't matter who minted it. Its value was in its substance. Why? Because gold couldn't be printed. It had to be earned through mining, labor, or conquest. By the 1800s, the world had found a way to turn this raw element into a global system. The gold standard. Every nation's currency was backed by gold. Every note represented a promise, a claim to something real, something tangible. If you had $20, you could walk into a bank and exchange it for a real gold coin. Money wasn't just paper. It was a certificate of value. But as nations grew wealthier and wars grew costlier, that restraint became a problem. Gold was honest. But honesty, it turns out, can be inconvenient for power. The first cracks appeared during war. In the early 1900s, the world's superpowers, Britain, Germany, France, all promised that their currencies were as good as gold. But when the First World War began in 1914, they realized something terrifying. You can fund a global war with gold ULL run out. So, one by one, nations suspended the gold standard. They printed money to pay for guns, soldiers, and propaganda. At first, it seemed harmless. Economies boomed during war spending. But when peace returned, inflation came with it. Prices soared and trust collapsed. Germany, in particular, witnessed a nightmare. By 1923, it took a wheelbarrow full of paper money to buy a loaf of bread. That's when the world realized a dangerous truth. Paper could create wealth or destroy it faster than gold ever could. Yet instead of abandoning paper, governments learned to control the illusion. They didn't want honest money. They wanted manageable money. After World War II, the world desperately needed order, a stable financial foundation. So, in 1944, delegates from 44 nations met at a small town in New Hampshire called Bretton Woods. They designed a new system. The US dollar would be backed by gold. Every other currency would be backed by the dollar. For decades, this seemed to work. Tadara was as good as gold, and America's vaults were full of it. Over 20,000 tons of bullion. But something was brewing behind closed doors. By the 1960s, the US government was spending far more than it earned, funding the Vietnam War, space programs, and domestic expansion. Other nations began to notice. France, under President Charles de Gaulle, started demanding real gold in exchange for their dollars, exactly as the system promised. And as ship after ship left New York loaded with gold bars bound for Europe. The truth became impossible to hide. There wasn't enough gold to back all the printed dollars. And so, on August 15th, 1971, US President Richard Nixon addressed the nation. I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold. But temporary never ended. That was the night gold officially died as money, and paper took its place as power. From that moment, money was no longer tied to anything real. Its value came only from belief, the collective faith that it still meant something. The US dollar became a fiat currency, from the Latin "let it be done." Its worth was declared by decree, not by content. At first, people didn't notice the difference. But over time, that invisible shift changed everything. With no gold limit, governments could borrow endlessly, central banks could print at will, and the concept of debt became the new foundation of prosperity. Money creation no longer required work, only confidence. The more paper they printed, the more the illusion of growth spread. Stocks rose, real estate soared, and inflation crept in like a quiet thief. $1 in 1971 could buy what takes more than $7 today. And the war on inflation became a cycle of control where those closest to money creation grew richer, and everyone else just ran faster to stay still. Gold was honesty, paper was persuasion. And persuasion had won. Since 1971, every attempt to restore balance has failed. The 1970s brought runaway inflation, fixed with high interest rates that nearly broke the economy. The 1980s brought credit expansion, a new addiction to debt. The 2008 crisis revealed the system as fragility, and the solution was the same as always: print more. And when the 2020 pandemic hit, the world printed trillions in new money in just months. The result: record asset prices, record debt, and record inequality. We now live in a world where the most powerful nations owe more than they produce, and where wealth exists mostly on screens, digits that can vanish with a keystroke. Paper didn't just replace gold, it replaced reality. But the story isn't over. As confidence in paper fades, new forms of digital gold are emerging, from cryptocurrencies to state-backed digital currencies. Nations like China and Russia are stockpiling real gold again, quietly shifting power from paper back to metal. At the same time, the US dollar's dominance is being challenged for the first time in decades. We are witnessing the opening moves of another transformation, one that may decide the next century of global power. The world once trusted gold. Then it trusted paper. Now it trusts code. But the question remains: can code hold value when belief breaks down? When gold aids something more than a standard ended, a philosophy ended. The idea that value should be earned, limited, and grounded in something real gave way to an illusion built on promises. And every generation since has lived under that illusion, chasing paper, inflating bubbles, and trusting systems that no longer have anchors. But maybe the lesson isn't nostalgia for gold. Maybe it is a reminder that truth and value can't be printed. They must be created. 3 takeaways. Gold was discipline. Paper is desire. When we abandon gold, we abandon restraint. Every crisis since 1971 is rooted in the same cause: unlimited money. The illusion works only as long as belief holds. A new financial transformation is coming, and history shows the anchor always returns. The question is, will it be gold or something even more powerful? When gold did, power changed hands, and those who understood the funeral became the ones writing the future.